good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time in the world, wherever it is you are tuning in from. I'm just looking at an exchange at the net between Taylor Fritz and Alexander Zverev from earlier on today. I'm sure we'll be addressing that very shortly. But let's begin, Nick, with what we've just seen, which is a Novak Djokovic straight sets win over Holger Rune. What are your thoughts post-match?
Disappointed it wasn't closer. I think we kind of went to this thinking maybe Rune could make the match interesting. It didn't happen. He didn't start well. And then he got into a few games. I definitely think there was a point where like some breakbacks were possible, but Djokovic just too good today. And probably the highlight of the match was Djokovic's post-match interview, which I have to say I did kind of like. I love his attitude there.
I guarantee you there's somebody who's already been tweeting about that. I guarantee you there's one of the Talking Tennis popcorn
I've already
community.
replied to that person.
Oh, he's already tweeted. Has he already retweeted, has he? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. He's even quicker than I thought. I was just on a live stream with Damien, and I said, I'll tell you who's going to be tweeting about this within seconds. And I know exactly his take on it as well. I don't even need to read the tweet.
Yeah.
Gil Gross here is tweeting regarding Holger Rune's situation. I do remember that top 5 record that he had being so impressive, and it's now, unfortunately for him, 0-10 over the last 10 meetings he's had with top players.
Is that because people have figured him out?
No, I think probably it was a bit skewed at the beginning, and I think with Rune, it's just a case of his form. I don't think he's not showing the sort of form that he showed in that. And maybe there was a bit of fearlessness in that first 8 situation. And I'm sure with somebody like Novak, maybe there is a case where it's like Novak maybe does need a couple of matches to get things going. But I think it's also, I mean, he's losing to other players outside the top 10 as well. And by the way, I mean, he's had an okay Wimbledon, especially when we compare it to, you know, the Monte Carlo defense earlier on this year. And we look at probably where he was at 12 months ago. It was probably about 12 months ago with Holger when we started to go, okay, maybe he's not as far ahead in his, you know, trajectory as we thought. You know, we probably had him and Sinner, you know, going to similar rounds at Grand Slams in our brackets a year ago. We were probably having maybe Rune going further than Sinner at the French, for example, and maybe some people having him further in the brackets at Wimbledon, but probably in the last 12 months, that has obviously changed dramatically. And Rune himself has said that perhaps he's stalled and is perhaps not quite where he would like to be in that trajectory compared to where he thinks he should be. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think his progress has definitely stalled for one reason or another. He's obviously box office when he gets into scraps that he shouldn't be in. But I do think that, yeah, he needs to figure something out because for whatever reason, his game now is no longer as effective. Maybe it's down to that lack of fearlessness that you pointed out, or something else. But I'm not an expert on it, but he's definitely kind of slowly becoming another Felix Auger-Aliassime in some ways, of being super exciting to watch when he first comes along. Probably got some better results than Felix did early on, but is currently in danger of sliding into becoming a solid top 20 player if he doesn't figure something out.
I wouldn't be pressing the panic button just yet.
Oh, I don't care enough to press the panic button.
Somebody who definitely doesn't need to press the panic button is Novak Djokovic, especially in terms of his physicality, because I think in the first the first set and a half, I think maybe there were some concerns. We've obviously had this lingering knee issue. I say lingering, of course he had surgery on it recently, and it's something that we've had to monitor throughout the tournament. I think some people were concerned about his movement on one or two occasions at his Wimbledon 2024 so far, but that didn't look too bad today. Perhaps, though, as we've suggested, Rune did let him off the hook in that it probably wasn't until towards the end of the second set when there were some more extensive rallies. The indoor conditions perhaps helping Novak in that respect at the very least. I mean, it helps both players. So, Novak has to take advantage of it. And Novak's serving today was off the charts for pretty much the whole match.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think Novak just did what he needs to do to get the match, and that's what he does. That's what he's an expert at. That's what he's done pretty much since the elbow surgery he had in 2017 and how he came back in 2018. He does what he needs to do to win. The question is that whether that's going to be enough if he makes the final, which I'm going to say at the minute is looking highly likely. Given who's left, I think it would be a big surprise if he lost to some of the players. With some exceptions, there's some asterisks. Yeah, in his side of the draw, it's when he gets to the final, that's where the real test is, and it's going to depend on how he steps up to that.
And how beat up one of potentially Alcaraz or Sinner are. I mean, imagine if Alcaraz Sinner is second on. Imagine that just pushing each other left, right, and center, and maybe even goes over 2 days. I mean, Djokovic against Nadal in 2018 had that feel, but no disrespect to Kevin Anderson, that was kind of like a slightly softer final than maybe some people might anticipate. Of course, Djokovic now has a 4-2 lead over Holger Rune head-to-head.
He does. Also, that Anderson final, Anderson was wiped out from the Isner match.
Oh, as well. Of course he was, yeah.
That was probably played more of a factor, because I think if Anderson did take Djokovic to 5 in 2015, so it wouldn't have been unheard of for him to challenge Novak, but because he was wiped out from the Isner match, that was it.
So,
Roger.
Say again, sorry?
He went long with Roger as well, actually. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, in that tournament. Okay, but bringing it back to Djokovic, he said in his on-court interview afterwards that actually physically he was okay. I saw him clutching at his stomach at one point as well, which made me think there might be an ab issue. But overall, I would say more good news for Novak. Novak's level, his serving, his returning was also off the charts. I know that he's got a pretty good reputation when it comes to the return of serve, but still, even by his standards, even on the first serve of Holger and on the second serve, there were some patches in the match when basically Holger couldn't afford to go to the second serve because Djokovic was eating up for breakfast. The 1-2s, the shortness of the points. I mean, the first set I think was over in under half an hour. All very good news for those that went into the tournament wondering what level that Novak would be at. Well, I think we are seeing a very good version of Novak, and it's going to have to be an incredible performance from Alex de Minaur if de Minaur is to knock him out. I want to talk about de Minaur, unless you want us to add something else to the Novak.
No, I wasn't. I think I was going to say something about de Minaur, which I think you were probably about to say, because there's a big asterisk about de Minaur's chances of beating Djokovic after the end of that match.
Yes, so obviously what Nick is referring to is de Minaur's win in 4 sets over Artur Fils. I watched the 4th set of that match, and the actual moment in particular that you're referring to is on match point, right?
Yes, so on match point, de Minaur puts away a volley and then seems to pull up rather suddenly and winces. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on there, but there was some concern that maybe he pulled something, or maybe something that he may have worsened something he was carrying in that moment. It's all a lot of speculation right now.
Yeah, I had that feeling too, that it was something that he might have been carrying already, because of the sort of knowing communication between him and his bench or his box at the end of the match. That communication, by the way, so de Minaur stretches, wins the point, I think, on a volley, and it's been a pretty, good match, goes to 4 sets, lots of breaks of serve in that 4th set. De Minaur referenced basically how badly he felt he was serving during that 4th set, but he gets over the line and what should be a moment of exaltation, I think matching his best ever performance at Wimbledon in a quarterfinal, and who knows from there, especially with his prowess on the grass court, and he has beaten Novak already this year. We'll come to our quarterfinal thoughts later on in the program. But from this moment of supposed exaltation, it's like, oh, hang on a second. He might have just injured himself by winning that match point. And he goes and sits down like it's a change of ends. And he sits down and looks at his box again like it's a change of ends. And the way he's shaking his head would have been a sort of, if you were, a de Minaur fan or something, and you were going, when you're watching this, and if it was just mid-match, you'd be thinking, oh, this could be done. But of course, fortunately for him, it's not mid-match, and he's got 48 hours to recover.
Yeah. So Djokovic is not someone you want to play when you're injured at all. And I would have fancied de Minaur's chances given he'd beaten Novak at the beginning of the year. Novak obviously not necessarily going in with the best form over the course of the season, although I do think at Wimbledon he's something else. But de Minaur might have fancied his chance of getting at least a set fully fit. And I think it's very clear that very possible, I should say, not very clear, because he could recover pretty well over the next couple of days, but very possible that that's not the case.
He wants to be an honorary Brit at Wimbledon for the last. Is that because of his? This is a comment I'm just seeing in a title or a headline. So I don't know if that's because of his relationship with Katie Boulter.
It would be that, yes. And to be honest, the British crowd are kind of behind him because of that.
Okay. Because I wasn't sure if he had some bloodline. I mean, he's actually, I think he might even have some. I mean, de Minaur to me sounds either Hispanic or Italian as a surname anyway. And I know he speaks Spanish, but whether he's got any British blood as well. But I think, as you say, he's just touching on the relationship with Katie Boulter, who was in his box today cheering him on. Of course, Boulter is out of the tournament, at least in the singles. So that is that. All right, well, Artur Fils, I think he can be actually sort of proud of his grass court season, bearing in mind I probably didn't have this down as his best part of the year. And in fact, bearing in mind where he was at in the Golden Swing, when I remember him getting quite badly beaten up by João Fonseca. And by the way, when I say beaten up, I do mean in tennis terms, before people are wondering if João Fonseca started clocking in from one side of the net or another. But João Fonseca, by the way, is slight and also very polite. I can't imagine him getting involved in some fisticuffs. So anyway, I think Fils can be quite happy with a fourth-round run. That's not to say that he won't feel disappointed right now, especially as he had chances in that fourth set to maybe take it to a fifth. But it is what it is, and Fils' run is done. I don't know if you've seen much of Fils at this tournament.
No, pretty much nothing.
Who of the players that played today on the men's side? Were there any you saw during your days at Wimbledon? Did you see Musetti play? Did you see?
No, but I walked past him playing, warming up for his match, and I could hear cheers from across the ground for when he was winning. That was his first round match where he had a little bit of problem. But who's left in the quarterfinals?
Sinner, Djokovic, Alcaraz.
I might have seen Alcaraz at a distance on a practice court, but I'm not 100%.
So basically, the players you saw all on the men's side are all out. So
pretty much, but I didn't see that. I mostly prioritized WTA players. That I think the men's players I saw who won were Kokkinakis, who obviously went straight out. Monfils, who went straight out. Who else? I think that was most of the guys. Oh, de Minaur, who just lost today.
Okay.
No, actually, I saw de Minaur. De Minaur's still in it. So yeah, I have seen de Minaur.
Boom, 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 boom. Musetti joining the Italian party. He is through. Probably not many of us on our bingo cards had him making the quarterfinal at Wimbledon. Not many of us had him on our. You did?
I did.
Oh.
I put him on the racket to make quarters, losing to Taylor Fritz.
Okay. So hang on a second. Wow. So you've got that quarterfinal. Wow, Nick, take a bow.
I mean, I got 6 out of 8 on the men's side. Right. The 2 I got wrong were Medvedev, because I thought he'd lose to Dimitrov, but Dimitrov wasn't fit. And I had Hurkacz playing Djokovic. I think most people did.
Yeah. And I guess you had Hurkacz beating de Minaur, right?
Yeah.
So your 2 non-quarterfinal, the 2 players that you didn't make it, actually didn't lose technically.
Pretty much. They both retired.
They both retired anyway. They didn't lose in terms of the points. And both of them actually had good chances. And I think the Hurkacz one was always a bit of a 50-50 in that de Minaur would have been a tricky fourth round for him, but didn't even get that far in the end. And it is what it is. But Musetti is in the quarterfinal. Why did you pick Musetti to get to the quarterfinal?
Because I thought he was he got to the Queen's final and he lost to Berrettini in Stuttgart. And I thought, do you know what? On grass, his game actually should work. I looked at his draw. I thought I could see him making at least third or fourth round. And I had zero confidence in Sebi Korda. So I went with Seti to make it instead of him.
Justified. Obviously, a great tournament for the lucky loser, Umpechi Pericard. Won the first set today and has taken a lot of plaudits for his tournament in the way that he's been serving in particular and just tearing things up. And that result against Korda, perhaps the standout one of the lot. But yeah, he made it through to the second week. And hats off to him. So I'm sure we'll be keeping an eye on him. And perhaps this might well end up being his best slam as well. The grass courts perhaps suiting that big serving Frenchman.
It does so really, although having said that, I think we first came across him winning that clay tournament the week before the French. And like this last sort of 6 weeks or so for him has been insane. Like he's rocketed up the rankings in a very short amount of time. And let's see if that trajectory continues. I mean, he's certainly very promising, very exciting player with the serve and the single-handed backhand. So we'll probably see him sticking around the top 100 for a bit. But yeah, name I think to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm sure there's people in the chat as well having some comments on the Novak comments post-match. Do let us know your thoughts in the live chat. Also hit the like button and hit subscribe if you've not done so already. Jane saying that you've moved up regarding your lack of trust in Korda. By the way, Jane and Ghosty, they just agree on everything. Actually, I was going to say maybe they're a couple, but actually they can't be a couple if they agree on everything. So yeah. Sean saying good job, Nick. I'm not sure if that's regarding
that was referring to the 6 out of 8.
I see. Okay. Matthew here saying, I had de Minaur, I guess, beating Hubie and Norrie beating Draper. Well, Norrie beating Draper is one I wouldn't have gone for, I must say.
Great call, Matthew, in the end, because I wouldn't have gone that. I didn't do that, to be honest. So, yeah, great call there.
This leaves us with one men's match from today, and it is Zverev against Fritz, with Fritz winning in 5 sets. I only saw this from the 4th set onwards when I thought things were going to get exciting. Plus, I think I was doing commentary on another match. So that meant I couldn't really see the first 3 sets. But I was watching the scoreboard for the first 3 sets. And listen, you know, there's an old phrase about football, and it's about some matches are actually more exciting watching them on teletext than the actual real thing because they were just like dull as dishwater. Well, I even watching this on the scoreboard today whilst commentating on another match was thinking, wow, this match does look like it's probably a hard watch with so few breakpoint opportunities. I think there was a tie break went the way of Zverev, and also at 4-all he broke Fritz. And I think for the first 2.5 sets, I think Fritz had 1 breakpoint opportunity. But once he takes the 3rd set, and I have to say, Taylor's performance in the 4th set tiebreak was awesome. And then going into the 5th, we then, or at least I started to feel as though there was some physicality issues on the Zverev side. He took what I described was a bump to the knee on Saturday evening in his 3rd round match with Cam Norrie. And it did seem like he was carrying it over into the 5th set today. And it looks like Gaspar here saying that Zverev was asked about his conversation with Fritz at the net. And he said his team is extremely respectful. I think his coach, his physio, and also his second coach are extremely respectful. I think there's some other people that maybe only in the box, maybe not from the tennis world, that are not so respectful. Anyway, that's okay, no issues. But actually, there's another tweet that I wanted to highlight from a German journalist where they were just sort of saying that apparently Zverev does indeed have an injury to a bone edema or edema, which I'm not sure exactly, but it doesn't sound great. And he's just announced this in his English press conference. So there does look like a Zverev injury that may end up impacting his Olympic bid.
Potentially, this is all new information for me. So
yeah, I've only just discovered it in the last sort of 15, 20 minutes or so as well. But that's obviously going to be an issue for Alexander Zverev going forward. I've got Misha Zverev on my TV in front of me, and he's shrugging his shoulders. I don't know whether that's regarding the injury or not, but we'll see if Zverev can continue. But Taylor Fritz, we all remember that quarterfinal with Rafa from a couple of years ago when, you know, he was dealing with an injured opponent and couldn't get over the line. We all remember the 4th round, I think it was, with Novak in Australia, dealing with an injured opponent and not got over the line. Well, today he did.
He did indeed, and he's one match away from redemption of like maybe making that Wimbledon semi-final he should have made a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That depending on how much of a fight Musetti puts up, obviously. I don't want to discount anything that he's doing because he is playing rather well. But I think Damien and I were both high on Fritz going into this tournament, and he's so far proving us right. And yeah, it was I think he was helped by the fact that it wasn't that physical a match. It was a very serve-dominated affair.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably meant that this 2-set-to-love comeback was always possible. And fair play to him. He didn't give up, and when he got into trouble, he served his way out of it. So yeah, great performance from Fritz, and yeah, he's looking fired up.
Seemed to be, at least people were telling me in the live chat earlier, albeit I wasn't watching until the fourth set, that Fritz was basically in trouble as soon as rallies were happening. But actually, completely reversed in the fifth set. As soon as they were into the rally, it was actually Fritz who was often producing a winner, by the way. So it wasn't just a case of making this atrocious and taking advantage of any physicality issues that Zverev was having by then. And listen, on a broader issue with Taylor, I think that he has been making very quietly some improvements. I remember that September US Open match he had with Novak Djokovic, where, again, just as soon as the rally began, just every single decision that Taylor was making seemed to be the wrong one. And it was a pretty horrible loss. It was a pretty disheartening one, I felt, for Taylor, who actually, from someone who could quite often push Novak, especially at the ATP finals in 2022, seemed to have lost his way a bit by September 2023. And yet, just a few months later, I took a lot of positives for Taylor in the loss he had to Novak in Australia, where actually that was a very, very close match. It was 4 sets, but it could have been 5. I saw a lot of improvements from Taylor, not just in the way he managed points and managed games, but even the way he could actually hang with Novak in the rallies, arguably for the first time in his career. So I have been optimistic about, I've been waiting for a run like this from him at Slam, and yeah, I think he's probably the favourite. We'll come to some predictions later on, but I think he's probably the favourite to make his first ever Grand Slam semi-final. And we remember where he was at when he won 2 years ago, Indian Wells, and then got to that quarterfinal with Rafa 2 sets to 1 up. And honestly, he was devastated in the press conference afterwards.
Yeah, and yeah, he's coming good, and I think he should be very pleased with this performance. I mean, I don't want to comment too much more than what we've already said because yeah, I think it's a good time to be positive about Taylor Fritz. But in terms of like looking deeper, sort of why this might be the case, it's hard to tell. But he's certainly got a great opportunity this tournament.
He certainly has. There was this exchange at the net, which I thought was a bit weird at the time. And yeah, I don't know why Zverev is bringing that up at the net. Maybe that would be better to bring that up in a different scenario. But it is what it is. And Taylor goes through. And Taylor didn't seem to be too bothered by it. I just thought that that the encore interviewer got it completely wrong, because the encore interviewer clearly had only seen bits of it and gone, "Oh, it's nice to see you two getting on so well at the net and everything else." And I was like, I don't think it was quite like that. I wasn't quite sure what it was, because it at one point sort of seemed quite friendly, and then the next minute seemed to be like Taylor wanted to get away. Certainly, as somebody tweeted, basically, Taylor didn't seem to be quite so keen on having the conversation as Alexander did. But basically, it seems like it's not you, and it's not basically the people close in your team. But Alexander clearly wanted to highlight some other issues with some other people in his box. But it is what it is, and Taylor proceeds.
Does indeed.
So I think, Nick, we should go over to the women, because I think we've done all 4 matches, unless I've missed something.
No, you've definitely covered all of it. And I might be a bit more useful on this one because I'm going to be honest, I was paying way more attention to the women's matches.
Great. We can get into those now. Which match would you say you were most engrossed in?
Well, 2 of them happened when I was working.
Okay, let's go for one of the 2 that it wasn't when you were working then.
And I'm trying to remember. I got back in time for. I think the one I was paying attention to the most was Collins, Krejčíková.
Okay. I had very little attention on this one, so tell us your post-match thoughts. I know Collins got injured midway through the second set.
Collins was carrying an injury of some kind because she was midway through the second set. She suddenly said, "I'm feeling pain," and like she insisted on going off court for a medical timeout during a game. She came out with some strapping quite high up her thigh, So clearly she's got some kind of pain there. And I think the first set was Collins fending off break points left, right, and centre from Krejčíková, who was just comfortably holding serve. Krejčíková was serving really well. She was setting up a forehand really well. Like on her service game, she was in full control. And I don't want to take anything from that. Collins, on the other hand, was making a lot of errors when trying to save out on her service games. But then when she got break point down, full Danimal mode was unleashed, and she was going for her shots, and they were landing. And Krejčíková was having a night. It was really weird because I was watching the set, going, Krejčíková should be winning the set, but Collins is refusing to let her break. And it was, as the set progressed, I was like, Collins might steal this, because at the time we didn't really know she was injured. And what ended up happening was I was like, Krejčíková is going to start getting nervous and frustrated, and maybe that's when Collins stabilizes and nicks this from her when she should have won the set. But Krejčíková eventually break down the door, broke for 6-5, served it out just about, because there was some nerve serving out the first set. And then, it was serving at 4-5 to stay in the set. There was nerve. Serving out the set was fine.
Okay.
And then early in the second set, she broke Collins. Collins fell apart. There were unforced errors everywhere. Then she has the medical timeout, comes back, starts to make a fight of it again. By that point, unfortunately, she was a double break down. Krejčíková then gets tight, serving out the match at 5-2. But then Collins immediately gives her love 40, couple of match points, and Krejčíková eventually claimed one of those. So, Krejčíková, weirdly, after that really messy match with Kudermetova in the opening round,
I remember that.
Stabilized, and has actually, it's hard to say because it looks like she's finding her game, but her last two matches she's had to deal with injured opponents. So we don't really have a fully clear picture on how she's doing, but she's certainly very happy to be in the Wimbledon quarterfinals. Certainly.
I mean, you saw her in Birmingham last year, and she made the final, I think, before losing to Ostapenko. I mean, so there is some grass stuff in the background that's been going on that she's not. We often obviously think about her winning the French Open and perhaps think about her on clay, but she's won a 1,000 on hard courts. She's done well against Iga. She's got it in patches in the last couple of years since that French Open win. There's been like 2 weeks of amazing Barbora, and then there's 2 months of no Barbora, if you like, for one reason or another. And as somebody I think Kid in the chat says, it's sort of a quiet progression to the quarterfinals, as often is the case. But I guess we're going to have to take notice of her now.
Yeah, you have to. And like Alex in the chat's also saying she's looking really good, and she does. She did. Taking nothing. I don't want to take anything away from her today, because a lot of people might be tempted to say it was about Collins not looking great. But we've seen so many times in tennis where you see someone against an injured opponent, and you don't really you find it hard to execute. Those that you might drop in some service games. Krejčíková didn't really do that, apart from near the end of a couple of sets. So, there was. But I think Krejčíková was overall really solid, really good, and just came out and played her game and wasn't particularly bothered about what was on the other side, and just sort of, if something went past her, it went past her. I am very interested to see how she deals with her next opponent. That's for sure.
All right. Well, we will be coming to those quarterfinals shortly. But before we do, I want to bring us to Jelena Ostapenko's straight sets win over Yulia Putintseva. This was a match that I was very much all over today. And a bit like the Novak Rune match, it was possibly over in the first 3 games. I think there was a stat. I think Novak maybe won 12 points out of the first 13. And it was very similar in this Ostapenko-Putintseva match. I think it was maybe something like 12-3 after the first 3 games, something like that. And really, I mean, she just flew out of the blocks. She was up a double break, I think 4-love, 5-love. I think then there is a hold of serve, and there is a break back from Yulia Putintseva before, in the end, Ostapenko breaks again for 6-2. I remember going into the match thinking this could be 50-50, bearing in mind Putintseva, of course, had just knocked out Iga. What do you think with Putintseva? Because I'm sure you were watching that Iga match very closely. I didn't see the match, unfortunately, but did that match that Putintseva produced on Saturday, did that give you a lot of confidence for Putintseva going forward, or did you think that maybe kind of Iga lost it more than Putintseva winning it?
Oh, Putintseva won that match, 100%, because everything was landing in and it was coming back with interest, and that was what was flustering Iga. Iga doesn't drop her level unless you give her some trouble. She doesn't do it by herself for very long. Not when there's not enough lot of resistance. Putintseva was basically hitting crazy shots and it was working. And like, she was using slice and variety, but also she was hitting through the court probably a little bit more than I'm used to seeing her do. So no, Putintseva played an amazing match on Saturday. It was, and I think that kind of went.
Did you
So
see
I
this
can't go
comfort
into
of
that
victory
going.
then?
Sorry.
Did you see this comfort of victory for Ostapenko coming? Did you see it being a
I wasn't
comfortable
sure.
win
I
for
thought
her
it
then
might
for
be
the
a
match?
3-setter. I wasn't sure which way to call this match because I could see it go either way. I could see Ostapenko overwhelming Putintseva. I could see Putintseva frustrating Ostapenko. Really wasn't sure how to call it. I have to say, with this Ostapenko run, this is the most efficient progress through a draw I think I've ever seen from her.
I mean, not just from her. I think there's a stat flying around that not many people have made the quarterfinals with dropping so few games. I know she's not dropped a set yet, but I think she's barely dropped many games. I mean, she would have dropped 5 games today, I guess. I think it was 6-2, 6-3, wasn't it? Her win today. So, yeah, well done, her. And by the way, I've used this expression already regarding Novak and Rune, so I'm going to bring another comparison. She was eating up second serves for breakfast. She seemed to be having a lot of fun out there, which is not always obvious, although we can see it in this image on the screen right now. But this is, of course, post-match. But even some things that weren't quite going her way, she seemed to be very relaxed and very comfortable in the way the match was going to pan out. And anyway, she's in the quarterfinals without dropping a set. And she's going to be playing, of course, Barbora Krejčíková. We'll come to that match very shortly. But before we do, Rybakina Kalinskaya. Unfortunately, this match was shaping up to be an absolute classic would be a bit of an exaggeration, but Kalinskaya gets the early break. Rybakina breaks back, and then at 4-3 on serve, Kalinskaya is getting some medical attention and for a wrist or arm issue, and she doesn't win another game thereafter.
Yeah, so I did watch the first set, or most of the first set, during my lunch break from work. So I agree with you. Like I thought what we were looking at was actually a fairly competitive match. I'm not surprised Rybakina had a slow start because she has been starting off slowish on her matches, apart from against Wozniacki. Kalinskaya was always going to be a dangerous opponent, but yeah, clearly the pain was too much for her. She did her best to make it competitive for up until she retired, but I think once the double break was hit, she was like, look, if I continue, it's just going to make this worse. So I can understand why she retired. It did take the wind out of sails of, as you say, what would have been a very good match because I was liking the contest. But even so, I would have backed Rybakina to win that match anyway, just seeing how it was playing out. I think she had the overall stronger serve. And when her strokes were working, they were penetrating a little bit more than maybe Kalinskaya's were. So I think the match was a little bit going to be defined by Rybakina's level anyway. So we'll see how it goes. But Rybakina probably pleased that it didn't end up being too much of a test as she probably worried it was after going 2-love down.
Yeah, I mean, where are we at with Rybakina now? Is she the hot favorite for the title?
On paper, I mean, to a certain extent, it's weird that we're not talking about her in the same way as we talk about Iga when she's the one remaining big name standing at the French, right? Because Rybakina's a former champion. Her game is so good on grass. It takes a lot to beat her on the surface. I think, but of course, I understand why, because there seems to be a lack of confidence in her to a certain extent in sort of closing things out, or whether she's going to be fully fit. But I very much keeping the faith. I think she's looking very happy and very confident here at Wimbledon. And look, if she loses at any point, then it becomes anyone's game. But on paper, she should be winning. On paper, she should be winning this title.
I mean, yeah, anyone's title, as you say, if she does go out. But at the moment, she's still in the draw. The other match today was Svitolina, winning in straight sets as well. I mean, again, did that surprise you, that scoreline?
No, I did not. Wong did very well to get as far as she did, but Svitolina was playing so well. Like she was someone I actually did watch when I was on the grounds. And she beat Lynette in what I thought was a very competitive match, very high level first round match. What she produced against Ons Jabeur, from what I saw, which was I kind of had half an eye on that match because it was during the Iga match, the Iga Peter match. Was very impressive. The craft that she was showing display, and yeah, she's loving Wimbledon. She seems to absolutely love it at Wimbledon at the minute in her career, and long may that continue, I guess, because I think Svitolina is potentially. I think Svitolina is looking very confident right now. So even though I didn't quite catch this match because it was over way too quickly, it doesn't surprise me that Svitolina just outplayed Wong. I think she's just looking too good right now.
I saw Svitolina pre Wimbledon at Bad Homburg. I thought she had a very good level against Wozniacki for most of the match, and yet Wozniacki won the match. In a way, perhaps that's a Wozniacki trait in large parts of her career, of winning in matches that maybe we wouldn't expect her to win, or winning matches ugly or whatever. But I still left that match, despite Svitolina losing, thinking, you know what, I don't think this is going to be damaging for her hopes. And of course, she's had deep runs. Did she make the semi-finals in 2019, Svitolina?
She did, and last year.
I knew last year she did. Yeah, sorry, but it was actually 2019.
Yeah, so she's a two-time semi-finalist. Yeah, and actually, she lost the eventual champion in both semi-finals.
Okay, yeah, we probably didn't expect that last year. The fact that that she would be a two-time finalist. But anyway, let's move on, shall we, to the quarterfinals on the women's side and give our sort of pre-match thoughts and predictions as well. I've got the draw up on the screen.
I should caveat this, by the way, because I was boasting about my 6 out of 8 on the men's side. I got 1 out of 8 on the women's from my bracket.
And that one, of course, was Rybakina.
Yes.
Yeah, but listen, I mean, before we get into this then, you know, I guess Ostapenko making the quarters. First of all, Iga was potentially in her way. We know about that head-to-head, but whatever. But actually, probably you, like me, had even doubts whether Ostapenko would get that far. Ostapenko's form has been way off. I mean, I saw her really struggling to beat players outside the top 100 in Werash earlier this year. But here she is, and she's in the quarterfinals, and she's going to be playing Barbora Krejčíková in a match you have seen before in the flesh.
Yes, at Birmingham. It's a repeat of the Birmingham final from last year. Yeah, and Ostapenko won that one in straights. It was tough straights. Like, it was a very competitive match. Krejčíková pushed it, but Ostapenko, very similar to now, looking very strong on the grass. And grass is a surface that suits her game. And I think I've seen a stat, it might have been actually from Damien on Twitter, that this is now Ostapenko's best slam in terms of win-loss record. Matches won and lost.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So, Battle of the Grand Slam champions. That one, I think, is probably going to end up in court one, because Rybakina's going to be the more well-known name, former champion. She's likely to be on centre along with a 2-time semi-finalist in Svitolina. Not surprised that Ostapenko has the head-to-head. By the way, Krejčíková, also a player that we weren't sure about form, because hers was injury-provoked rather than self-inflicted, if that makes sense. So, like, she's missed a lot of this year. So it's great to see that she's doing well. I do think that head-to-head will probably play out, especially since how confident Ostapenko is, and how Krejčíková, although she is looking good, maybe hasn't been tested too much after the Kudermetova match. So I am leaning towards Ostapenko coming through that one and making a second career Wimbledon semi-final 6 years after her first.
Me too. I'm leaning towards that as well, and probably into close-ish sets. with Ostapenko. I mean, even before the match today, although I had it as a 50-50 with her and Putintseva, I was kind of like, I do have this as 50-50. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Ostapenko wins, it's 2-3 or whatever, as it turned out. I also thought there's a good chance this goes 3, even at the end of the first set, by the way, and how dominant Ostapenko was throughout. And by the way, I think she hit in excess of 20 winners, and Putintseva was certainly under 10 and maybe closer to 5 on the winner count. But even at the end of the first set, and despite how dominant she had been, she can easily go off the rails for 2 or 3 games, and suddenly she's in a dogfight. And dogfights and Ostapenko, you never know which way they're going to go. In fact, if it's a dogfight, I might well fancy Putintseva. But that's the past. This is the present and even the future. But yeah, I'm going to go the same way as you. Probably something similar to that Birmingham final. And then we'd have Jelena Ostapenko potentially in a Wimbledon semi-final. Wow. And I think this is the one she wants. She's got the French Open under her belt. I think she sees this tournament on the grass as having 1 or 2 less opponents to have to go through to what she would have to do to get a hard court slam, for example. I think she's bought into the romance and the tradition of Wimbledon, and I'm not sure she directly. I was sat next to her and her mum in Werash about an hour after a loss that she'd had there, probably to Susan Lehmans. She had 2 losses, one in the singles, one in the doubles there at the Billie Jean King Cup. And it was like end of the day, 7 p.m. Her mother was having a glass of wine. I sat down on a table basically next to them. But of course, most of the conversation is going on in a language I don't understand. However, most of the time, Ostapenko was pacing up and down on her mobile phone. And in fact, I did chat to her mum briefly in English. But at that time, Ostapenko was seemingly, at least in terms of results, not in a good place. And I think that's probably why so few of us had her in our quarterfinals.
Yes, because she had Tomljanovic round 1. She could have.
Well, exactly.
Been that was a potential upset right there, especially given what happened last time they played at Wimbledon.
Right, Tomljanovic won that, right?
Yeah, round 3.
And there was a bit of needle, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was definitely some back and forth, and Tomljanovic was there was some words exchanged during the match about professionalism and sportsmanship and whatnot. I think the ironic thing is that I've been backing Ostapenko to do it well at Wimbledon for the last 2 or 3 years, and the 1 year I give up on her chances is the one that she comes through on.
Yeah,
but her level on grass has always been strong, and she's still factored pretty high on my system. But I was like, I don't know whether we can go for that. But if she got to the 4th round, she had a good chance, and she did. And I think the fact she made her way through the draw against people that she should be beating, and Ostapenko against people she should be beating, is not necessarily always the best combination for her, especially recently. And now she's here and she's playing like a top player at the minute, and something's changed. Maybe she's just in a good mood.
There we go. Well, let's move on to Elena Rybakina against Elina Svitolina. What are your thoughts on that one?
If anyone's able to diffuse Rybakina Svitolina is, I think her ability to kind of counterpunch is well known. Her ability to hit through the grass is well known. She's added weapons now. She's obviously feeling good. She's coming through the draw and she's playing really, really well. So the question then is basically, how hard is Rybakina on grass going to be? That's literally how hard is Elena Rybakina going to make it to beat her? Very even head-to-head as we have on the screen. This is any other tournament, this would be really difficult to call in some ways. But I think Rybakina's got a significant threat here to her chances of getting a second Wimbledon title.
We played each other very recently at a Grand Slam.
Roland Garros, yeah.
Straight
it was clay. And it looks like, having a look at Rybakina beat Svitolina the last time they played on grass, which was 3 years ago, before Rybakina kind of kicked into gear.
Yeah, a year before,
I think Rybakina's serve is going to play a big part here. If she serves well, she's going to be difficult for it's going to be difficult for Svitolina. If they get into a rally, I like Svitolina's chance of disrupting her.
Svitolina's 2 wins have both come in 3 sets, and Rybakina's 2 wins have both been straights. That helps the narrative a little bit. Their most recent match, Rybakina won that in straight sets at Roland Garros, and their only encounter on grass, Rybakina also won in straight sets. And as you say, pre-Rybakina. I think if I was in any doubt about my prediction, I'm sort of, you can probably tell that I'm reinforcing it with the way I'm talking right now. And I'm going to go with a Rybakina. 2 very tight sets, but I'm going to go with a Rybakina to emerge the winner.
I'm going similar. I'm not going to do set. I could see this going 3, but I think that sort of head-to-head where Svitolina's always lost at least 1 set to her is significant. And also, I kind of have to back myself a little bit, because obviously I've been saying Rybakina is the title favourite, and I'm still going to stick with that. So from before the tournament started. So for that reason, also that head-to-head and how it sort of played out, I'm going to say Rybakina. This is the one I'd be least surprised if I was wrong on.
Okay, because I'm about to introduce the next one. As for me, actually, the most difficult one.
Yeah, and that was a stupid statement for me to make. I wouldn't be surprised if I was wrong on any of these, because they're all really good lineups, potentially.
What I was going to say is, at least from my perspective, I am quietly optimistic about the first 2. At least I wasn't considering my pick too much, in terms of the fact that I could be wrong on Rybakina or Ostapenko. In fact, probably will be. But I was like, these are the 2 players I think are going to win these matches, and this is why. This next one for me is actually the most difficult of the 4 quarterfinals to call. Whether I'm right on all of them or wrong on all of them, this one for me is the most difficult one to call, between Lulu Sun and Donna Vekic. They've never played before. That's one reason, but I just think there's a real random element to this and probably the random element is actually brought by Lulu Sun. Who would have expected her to hit more than 50 winners against Emma Raducanu and actually outwin her Raducanu in that match?
And she's hitting a lot of winners. Like, she's been blasting her way through this draw, looking at the stats that are coming out about Sun. Interestingly, when I had to briefly not watch the match and go somewhere, but as I was listening to the radio coverage, Laura Robson said that Sun reminds her of Kvitova, and I can see why. Lefty, flat hitter. And Kvitova beat Vekic in the Berlin final last year. So, and Vekic's record against lefties apparently isn't great, although she did beat a left-hander early in the tournament. I don't know. I think the key to this match for me is Lulu Sun's form repeatable and sustainable? Because I think she played the match of her life against Raducanu to a certain extent. Or maybe that's an exaggeration, but she played a very, very high level. And I don't know. I think she hits bigger than Kerber. I think Kvitova's closer. But I think, to me, at some point she's going to make way too many unforced errors, and she's going to struggle. The question is when that's going to happen. And Vekic has got through some big hitters recently. She got through Yastremska and she got through Badosa. So for me, I don't know. I think Vekic is going to have the experience. She's feeling confident. She's gritted her way through some tough matches. She knows she will have done her research on Sun. She probably would have watched the end of that match. She knows what's coming. I think that it's going to come down to, does Sun continue to play unbelievable tennis or not? That is the unknown. I'm going to edge towards maybe she's going to hit the wall. And for that reason, I'm going with Donna Vekic to win it.
Totally understand that. And on this occasion, I'm going to go with the shock or slight surprise. I'm going to go with Lulu Sun to win. If she can reproduce the same form that she showed against Emma Raducanu, huge if, I know. But, I think there's the tennis is there. And yeah, Vekic and grass is a match made in heaven in so many respects. Again, I saw Vekic close up having a really epic match with Greek Minnen recently in S. Hoggentop. I like the way you call it. You call it Rosmalen, right? That's a lot easier, right?
Rosmalen, yeah, because it's easier.
Rosmalen, yeah, let's go with that. So they had a really epic clash, and there was nothing wrong with Vekic, by the way, in that match. It was all about Greet's unbelievable level that particular day. It didn't make me waver about Vekic and her chances at Wimbledon, albeit I didn't have her in the quarterfinals. And here she is. But yeah, I'm going to go with Lulu Sun. And perhaps this is me falling into that trap of having seen a lot more of one player, especially in terms of recency, having seen that match from start to finish against Raducanu. But therefore, I'm going to go with Lulu Sun. There we go. And
I will say I have watched both Vekic's match against Badosa and Yastremska.
Okay.
And she looks
maybe you're
determined.
more informed. Yeah. Which is the first match on tomorrow, by the way, in terms of the women?
Well, the first match on, I think, is the Vekic Sun match on court 1. And then the Sinner match starts half an hour later on centre.
Got it.
Sinner against Medvedev. And then Alcaraz follows Vekic and Sun on court 1. Whereas Paolini and Navarro, who we haven't come to yet, is the last match on centre.
Indeed. By the way, some people just joining as well. Some new people in the chat. Charlie FN. Please do hit subscribe if you are new to the channel as we head towards 9,000 subscribers. I'm sure we'll get there before the end of the tournament. We've been slowly creeping rather than speeding it. But anyway, let's speed on towards the 4th quarterfinal. Jasmine Paolini, Emma Navarro, and actually 3 of the quarterfinalists. I was quite clear in my mind on who to pick. But who are you going and why between Paolini and Navarro?
So this is an interesting situation here because Navarro has the head-to-head against Paolini. But Paolini's been proving us wrong on grass, and she's been proving us wrong all year because she's on fire right now and she's very close to making top 5. I'm actually at the point where I'm regretting not putting her in my power ranking because she was actually pretty close.
Okay.
So same with Kalinskaya, who lost today. But Navarro's also looking pretty good. I like the way she did with Goff. She's played really solidly. But I think there's something about Jasmine Paolini right now. I could see this one going 3, but I am going to go towards the slightly hotter player right now in terms of form, Jasmine Paolini.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry, you caught me off guard there. I thought you were going to go Navarro. I mean, yes, in terms of form for the whole year, for sure, Paolini. But I'm going Navarro. And I have seen both of these play. I saw Paolini basically on the ropes, I think it's fair to say, against Madison Keys in the previous round. Madison doesn't get injured. Pretty sure she wins that match, a double breakup. Albeit I think actually the sort of injury flared up at its most prominent at 5-3. So I think she'd already lost one of the breaks. But
she was struggling physically towards the end of the second set as well.
Right, exactly.
Get it done.
Yeah. So, but for me, Navarro, the level I saw from her against Osaka, and since then has been Wimbledon final run level. You know, she might not have quite the name or the ranking or the seeding or the pedigree perhaps before this tournament. And I'm sure none of us would have put her in our final. If you did have her in your Wimbledon final, by the way, and you are tuning in right now, thumbs up. Let me know in the comment section below or in the live chat if you're watching right now and say, hey, I had her in the final. But she's showing the form. And for me, having seen the two players play, especially in recent matches, Navarro's level is higher now, whether she brings that tomorrow or not, or tomorrow. Hubbard's 3, I think, local time, at least from Hubbard's 3 local time.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, depends on how much of a fight Medvedev makes it.
Yeah, exactly. Medvedev and Sinner, exactly. So that'll be on after that, will it? It's on centre, is it, this one?
It's on centre after Medvedev Sinner.
Got it. So this is the head-to-head here between Navarro and Paolini. Navarro having 2 straight sets wins in Doha this year in San Diego, all of them coming very, very recently. San Diego, of course, the Vanch San Diego Open, as we know it, 7-5-6 love, and a 2 sets win also in Doha this year, and then most recently in Miami, including a bagel in the 3rd set. Miami, quick, outdoor, hard court. Not saying it's exactly the same, but just throwing it out there. And a 3-0 head-to-head. Yeah, I'm going Navarro.
I will say this, looking at head-to-head, the quicker the court gets, the closer Paolini gets.
Okay.
And also, Paolini was on the ropes against Keys, but Navarro does not hit as big as Keys does. She's a very consistent hitter. She's very solid. She executes really, really well. I was impressed by what she did against Goff. I think this is going to be, regardless of how the file turns out, I think it's going to be a very even match, but I could see a scenario where Paolini finds a way of rushing Navarro.
Could well be the most fun one. I mean, Lulu's son, Vekic, could be a bit random, but who knows whether Son is going to turn up once again, or I have got her going through, as I said. But this one could well be the one that goes 7-5 in the third. Rybakina for me and Ostapenko, probably. It's up to them, and we'll see how those ones panned out. I like the Ostapenko Krejčíková, dynamic in particular. That could well be fun too. Well, we'll see.
I want to say one more word on these quarterfinals.
Go on.
As a general, because I do agree with you, as well, that the dynamic, each of these is absolutely fascinating dynamics, and they're probably all potentially going super close. I would not be surprised if they all go 3 sets. But I wanted to kind of make a point that although we're kind of saying it's somewhat unexpected, I'm not surprised that any of these players are in a Wimbledon quarterfinal at all, apart from Lulu's son. And that's obviously because I hadn't seen Lulu's son before this tournament. The surprise is that it's all happened at the same time, rather than in each individual case, when you really break it down. So there's a possibility to go like this is like random and whatnot, but I think if you're really paying attention, you're seeing the kind of form these players either can produce or have been producing this year. None of these should be a huge surprise that they're here, apart from the obvious, which is Lulu's son.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're all pretty clear anyway. At least we've made a clear decision. Whether we're super clear in our minds as to who's going to go through and whether we're going to be right on 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 of those. Well, I'm sure I will remind Nick if I've got more of these semi-final or these quarterfinals right or wrong than you. I've got Ostapenko, you've got Ostapenko. I've got Rybakina, you've got Rybakina. But where we differ is you've got Vekic, I've got Son, you've got Paolini, I've got Navarro. Let's see how those ones pan out in the coming 24 hours, 48 hours or so. Over to the men. And of course, tomorrow we have Jannik Sinner against Daniil Medvedev. Their head-to-head looks very different today compared to what it looked like a year ago, when I think a year ago it would have been 6-0.
Yes.
I can have a quick look at that right now, but it would have been...
It was
until Beijing. So even much less than a year ago, like October or September, is when Jannik Sinner. Look at that, 6 wins in a row for Daniil Medvedev. Have they played on grass? I don't think so. No, we've got Marseille indoor hard. I think Marseille indoor hard. Yeah, right. Of course, we've got. Yeah. Oh wow, they've not even played on clay either. So this is their first non-hard court match. I guess there is a fairly warm favorite in this one. Are you going the way of the warm favorite?
Yeah, I have to. I think Sinner's going to get his 6th in a row. And I think the way he's playing, the way he's kind of synced up on grass at the minute, I don't think I can't see anyone else doing it. So I can't see. If Medvedev somehow plays out of his mind and tries something different, like he did in the Australian Open final, maybe. But I think the likelihood is that he will still revert to type. And I think Sinner on grass is producing something special right now. I'm going with Jannik Sinner. Yeah,
me too. I'll probably go in 4 sets. Yeah, me too. I just think that 6-0, by the way, seems very, very daunting and very impressive, and it absolutely is. And then winning the next 6 is equally so, or the next 5, I should say. I'm actually here predicting a 6-1. And again, I've seen Medvedev a couple of times look shaky in this tournament. I think he's decent on the grass, but for me, a Medvedev Grand Slam win, if it is going to happen again, and actually I have my doubts on that, it will come on the hard courts rather than the clay or the grass. And I think there's just 2 or 3 players that are significantly better than him on this surface, and he's always going to be running into them. And one of those players, and especially in terms of the form, is Jannik Sinner. Carlos Alcaraz, Tommy Paul is the other match tomorrow in terms of the men's quarterfinals. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think Tommy Paul wins at least 2 sets.
Ooh.
I think Tommy Paul has shown an ability to frustrate Alcaraz. Alcaraz has not looked amazing this tournament. He found the level required to get past Tiafoe when he was on the ropes. But like dropping that set against Humbert, he can't afford to lose concentration against Tommy Paul, who is a player who can trouble him on quick courts. And for that reason, I think I have more confidence in Alcaraz will do something similar to what he did against Tiafoe, where he will lock in and he will lock in and get the job done. Maybe he'll maybe especially in a fifth, but I could see him doing 2-1 to come back again. But I think Tommy Paul will give him a right headache. I'm edging Alcaraz in 5.
I'm edging Alcaraz too. I don't know if it'll go 4 or 5, but I think you're right. There is something about the way Tommy plays. Tommy does seem to be a bit of a problem for certain players on the tour. And I think Carlos Alcaraz, I think he'll always be a thorn in his side. If we look at one of those Alcaraz wins, by the way, coming in 3 sets. And I mean, if you looked at this just between 2 players and you knew nothing about them, you would just go, oh, these 2 players seem pretty evenly matched. And to be honest with you, whenever they play, they are evenly matched. Those 2 matches that came in quick succession last year in Canada and Cincinnati, back to back, maybe the first one caught us a bit by surprise, but then actually when it went into the next one, you're thinking, okay, I can see this being extremely exciting. And of course, it went into a 3rd set. And yeah, and Tommy Paul on the grass is certainly a thing. He's unbeaten now. I think, is it 10 matches, something like that, across these 2 tournaments at Queen's and Wimbledon. So, Tommy Paul.
Yeah, Tommy Paul's on a winning streak. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's on a winning streak of I think I said 10 matches at 5.
Yeah, it'd be 9, I think, because you have to win.
Right, 9 matches.
No, it's the last 32 at Queen's, so last 32, 16. Yeah, you have to win 5 matches to win Queen's, and he's won 4 to get to the quarterfinals, so 9.
Indeed. So I never feel as though attrition is an issue for Tommy Paul. There was a match recently, he went into a 5th set, and I thought he's winning this, although I think that was more of a mental battle than a physical one with Virtanen last week. And yeah, I'm not sure where I had Tommy Paul. By the way, we were talking about predictions. You said you had 6 of the 8, and I think you told me off air, didn't you? I'm not sure if we mentioned it on air. The 2 that you got wrong. But
yeah, the ones I got wrong, I got Medvedev wrong because I thought he was going to lose to Dimitrov, and the way the match started, that was looking pretty good. And then I had Hurkacz making the quarter instead of de Minaur, but that was because I think everyone did.
What I said, I'm pretty sure that I get confused between whether it was off air or on air, but I'm pretty sure off
air. It was on air actually, because
was it that I said your 2 players hadn't technically lost?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. I thought it was done pre-show. Just having a quick look at the live chat. Somebody here tipping Sinner to win Wimbledon. TT Cobb, good to see you, by the way, as well. I remember seeing you in the chat the other day. Love to see you back. And you're going for Alcaraz in 4 sets, I think. That is there. Alcaraz had his French Open, so Sinner's turn at Wimbledon, at least, is the theory going on there. Alcaraz Paul rivalry is mainly good. Has Nadal Fognini vibes. Okay, interesting comparison there, Ghosty. I like that. Sean here suggesting that Djokovic looks like a shoo-in for the final. Well, let's come to, I think we've both basically said Alcaraz, Tommy Paul's going to cause him all sorts of problems. It's going to be a headache, but he will proceed and will play Jannik Sinner in the semis. Musetti Fritz.
I predicted this quarterfinal before the tournament.
Yeah, I did not.
I predicted Taylor Fritz would win this match and make the semi-finals. I have seen nothing from Musetti or Fritz to make me change my mind on that. I think it's going to be Taylor Fritz, and I think it's going to be 3 sets, maybe 4. But I think Fritz should get this one, I think, especially after that confidence boost of beating Zverev today. So, by the way, of course, Ghost is going for Tommy Paul to beat Alcaraz. That was not a surprise. But yeah, that's what I'm going for. I think Taylor Fritz beats Musetti.
Yeah, they played each other on grass as well 2 years ago during that Taylor run to the quarterfinals before Fritz lost to Rafa in 5, and that was a straight sets win. Musetti undoubtedly has taken some steps forward since then. Fritz has probably taken steps forward, steps backwards, and steps sideways in those 2 years. But let's be a bit more positive and suggest he's certainly taken a couple of steps forwards over the last few months. And yeah, I'm with you. I'm going for a Taylor win. 3 or 4 sets seems to make sense. 2-1 head-to-head. The only Musetti win did come in their most recent encounter in Monte Carlo, but Musetti, Monte Carlo, it is a bit of a thing. Remember him beating Djokovic in Monte Carlo last year, and Clay, despite the Clayler, is it joke that Taylor made about himself earlier this year? Yeah, it's certainly a lot more Grassler, if that is indeed an expression, which I'm sure it isn't. Okay, so both of us going Taylor fairly comfortably. That then brings us to the last quarterfinal, which is Novak Djokovic against Alex de Minaur. What are your thoughts?
So, I think if we weren't concerned about de Minaur's physical state, I'd be looking at this going Djokovic in 4, with the potential of de Minaur giving him some headaches, because de Minaur did beat him earlier this year. Now there's a possibility that de Minaur's physically compromised and Djokovic is locked in. Even if we do play down what happened at the end of that match, I'm still going Djokovic in the straights. I think Djokovic is now locked in. He's got his eyes focused on that another Wimbledon final. And I think it's going to take a heck of an effort to stop him. I'm not saying Alex de Minaur can't do that, but it might be a heck of an effort for him.
Yeah, I feel pretty similarly. I probably maybe not quite as convinced about Novak. TT Cobb, I think, was also suggesting a straight sets win. Yeah, Grasslaw Ghosty, you're absolutely right. Not my best work. I don't know what my best work is, but take your time, Ghosty. Come back in a couple of weeks and maybe reproduce it for me. Thank you. No, I'm probably not quite as convinced. I think de Minaur, I mean, he's absolutely stretching and maxing every single sinew. Let's just assume and hope that he is fit going into this match. We did touch upon some of the physical issues he had at the end of his encounter today in 4 sets over Artifice. I would think that Alex has got more than the capabilities of taking a set off him. And of course, their actually not their most recent encounter, their penultimate encounter at the United Cup. But actually, I remember both of these matches. In fact, these 3 matches, I remember them all very clearly. The one at United Cup, where Alex was the better player and the straight sets win was fully deserved. That one, by the way, at Monte Carlo may have been straight sets for Novak, but there were breaks of serve left, right, and center, and probably did give us a clue that Novak wasn't going to go on to win the title, because that's exactly what happened in the next round for Novak when he lost to Casper Ruud. And I thought actually de Minaur had lots of chances to at least take a set in that particular encounter. So lots of positives from those 2 recent ones. If you're a de Minaur fan or in the de Minaur team, maybe look away from the first encounter they had in Australia last year at the round of 16 stage, which was just a bit of a car crash from the Australians' perspective. But maybe they can take solace on the fact that he's made huge steps forward since then. The matchup, as I think Damien said, between these 2 players is just horrible from de Minaur's perspective, in that pretty much de Minaur's strengths are also Novak's strengths, and Novak is just much better at them. De Minaur, I hope, is 100% and can therefore make this a bit physical, and that might help if he is okay in terms of where Novak is at and the age differential and everything else. But I am trying to talk myself into this being an incredibly close encounter, but I can't talk myself into a de Minaur win, and therefore I will go for Novak Djokovic in 4 sets to stretch that lead to 3-1 in the head-to-head.
Okay, we agreed on everything, John.
Well, we did on the men's side, did we? We agreed on all 4, did we?
We agreed on all 4.
So we have a Sinner Alcaraz and Fritz Djokovic. Yeah, that's probably the sort of easier one to predict. I think, I can see 1 or 2 people maybe finding an argument for Musetti, stretching it a bit with Tommy Paul. I think, yeah, the de Minaur one maybe. I think it's really, really difficult to make a case for Medvedev. But those other 3, yeah, I would listen to a case. I would listen to the Medvedev case, but only just because I'd be very curious of how you would construct it. And on the women's side,
Let's get Hurry on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but maybe, listen, I don't know how it is when you're a fan of a player. Sometimes you're more, less confident than when you are. I mean, I'm sure going into various Rafa matches, I was probably panicking and everyone was like, he was always winning this. And sometimes I have those conversations with Novak and previously Roger and I'm sure Medi fans as well. But yeah, I think it would be difficult to make a case for Medvedev.
Yeah, probably.
Just have a quick look at the live chat, and then we will wrap things up. No late in 3. He's going to the final. Says 1. I think Alex will not be fit to play a good match. Suggests MA. If Novak hits his high service number, says Matthew, then we know he'll get into Demon Serve, and the rest should write itself. And yes, the wins for De Minaur cannot be dismissed, but this is likely to be a much better version of Djokovic, and certainly Djokovic as a year. We had the beginning of the year, which obviously included that loss to De Minaur, and then we know how Australia panned out, and it actually got worse after Australia. But it has been a kind of like this for Novak. In the French Open in particular was a huge step forward if it wasn't for the injury. And his performances at Wimbledon, I would suggest, have got better and better. I mean, perhaps he was a bit lucky with the first 2 rounds on the draw, but Popyrin was supposed to be a test. It was. And then he put in his best performance of the tournament so far today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this kind of shows that you should never discount Novak Djokovic in any situation, really. Like, you never write Djokovic off. And the only time you write Djokovic off is if he's is against his toughest opponents, and that's in very specific circumstances.
Yeah, definitely some amusing comments in the chat that maybe I should have come up with before, such as Taylor Fritz would have been slightly better. Then we've got some Medvedev comments. I like this one from Jane as well, by the way. Jane is, I think what this would mean, that if he was to puke, does he then just go back to how he was before and start losing to Medvedev all the time and start falling down the rankings and not making Grand Slam finals or semi-finals?
Either that or he goes into Super Saiyan mode.
Yeah, maybe he just goes to another level where he's just like not losing a match ever again. Nick, any final sort of thoughts either on anything that's happened today, Wimbledon as a whole? How much have you enjoyed the tournament? Any frustrations? Ostapenko's challenges, for example, which have caused a lot of amusement on Twitter today. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, this shouldn't be anything new with Ostapenko. I'm fully aware of this. 5 Live had Naomi Brody commenting on this match, and I think they fully knew what they were doing with that choice.
Yeah, they've had a little bit of a discussion before, right?
Yes. I've loved this Wimbledon. I mean, I think I'm going to have to fondness for it because I was there and I got to be involved in, I was there for some really good matches and some really significant matches. So I'm always going to have a soft spot for this Wimbledon, regardless of how quite good it is in terms of matches. But I think this is where it's really going to start catching fire at this quarterfinal stage. We've got some humdingers of women's quarterfinals. We've got some very interesting men's quarterfinals coming up. I think the men's tournament will catch fire when we hit the semis. If it's Sinner Alcaraz, definitely. If we get Djokovic against one of Silka or Alcaraz in the final, that's what we're kind of looking forward to with the men's event, is how long until the big names clash. I think we've got a whole lot of potential, and I'm not planning on missing a lot of it, as you can see from my Twitter.
Yeah, I'm just sharing your media, as it's called on Twitter, basically all the images that you've most recently shared. And the most recent one is your basically a laptop. Is that a laptop combination?
There's 3 laptops on the television.
Okay, 3 laptops on the television. Where are you getting these laptops from?
Are
they all yours? Or are you knocking on neighbors' doors saying, "Can I borrow your laptop?"
I'm borrowing and stealing any screens I can. I'm hoping to get to about 20 screens for next year's Wimbledon so I could watch every single court.
There you go. So wonderful. Take care, Matthew. Thanks for joining us. Cool. So anyway, yes, fingers crossed things catch fire. Yeah, I've enjoyed this Wimbledon so far for a lot of the 5-setters on the men's side and some of the outside courts in particular. And regarding the big ones, I did enjoy Djokovic. I did enjoy Alcaraz against Tiafoe the other day. Great to see Francis's form returning. I hope in terms of the women, that I remember some of the sort of fourth rounders and quarterfinals and semifinals we had last year, where, you know, those two incredible matches that Jabeur had back to back against Rybakina and Sabalenka. And we remember the Svitolina run that included that win over Iga. And of course, an incredible match she had with Azarenka. And of course, Iga's incredible match with Bencic. All of these matches coming within just a few days of each other. I'm hoping that now we're getting deep in the women's side, we can see some classics like that in the next couple of days.
I mean, it'd be nice. I mean, we've had some decent ones anyway. I mean, the Keys Paolini one was looking really good until Keys retired. Badosa Kasatkina was so good. That was a really, really good match in round 3. But you're right. Like, we need something in the second week to keep us going. Otherwise, yeah, it might end up being like the Australian Open this year, which fell a bit flat towards the end.
And the French, I guess. I mean, I guess certainly French, on one side of the draw, but yeah, the other
French,
side.
The French had some redeeming features in the second half with Paolini and Rybakina was good, and Zverev Sabalenka was dramatic. Goff Jabeur was good as well. So yeah, we had some. I think I think we've got some potential here for some good ones. I think if you want like the highest quality one, the highest potential for the highest quality one is going to be Rybakina Svitolina. But I wouldn't be surprised if you end up with a really tough battle between Navarro and Paolini.
Nick and John once again agree, but just keep an eye on those two matches. I mean, I agree on your. Oh, you're doing that. Oh, there we go. Look, there we go. Balloons are flying everywhere because John and Nick broadly agree on most of the takes. Just slightly different on who we predicted to win.
You know what would be hilarious is if we get 3 of them right.
Yeah, we sort of share.
Yeah,
we sort of share the other 2. You get Vekic, for example, and I get Navarro, or the other way around. All right. Well, we've got a late entry here by someone saying, "What's up, guys?" Janethan or Yainton, I hope I'm saying your name something closely right. Please do hit the like button. And if you are new to the channel, please do click subscribe. We are now coming to the end of this show, but the wonderful thing you can do with the wonderful technology, if you do indeed have a laptop or 3, then you can rewatch this and get involved in the comment section below. Nick, it just brings me to say a big thank you for joining me today, and we'll be catching up again with you very soon. I'm sure there'll be a live commentary or 2 or 3 from you between now and Sunday, and I'm very much looking forward to that.
I definitely will be doing at least 1 match, so I'm looking forward to doing that too.
For sure. To everybody else, you know the drill. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.